Yo, yo, yo! Welcome back to the MMA Short Show. Is always your boy, Steven Moustaris. And guys, man, the return of Kevin Lee this weekend. I'm tossed up in the air right now. I'm torn. I don't know whether to be excited. I don't know whether to be like, does he really deserve it? I'm sitting here kind of torn for sure. And, I've been watching the press, the pre-fight press conferences and the interviews and all these things with Media Row that they go through on the fight week. And it was pretty cool to hear Kevin Lee. It made me realize for a second. I was listening to Kevin Lee. I don't know if you guys saw it yet. I might have it pop up on the screen, probably his quote. But it was just something about the Apex, talking about like, yeah, man, like, do they not understand that the pandemic's over? Like, why are we here? There's nobody in this thing. Like, we deserve fans. Like, I completely agree. And it was refreshing to hear a fighter like Kevin Lee be outspoken again. Because, I mean, honestly, the last couple of years, I don't know if you guys have been realizing, the UFC has been doing a really good job of cleaning up all their fighters and making sure they're not talking shit. Like, as soon as Francis does, they're like, oh, he's done. I'm done with him. Let him sign somewhere else. Like Kevin Lee was a big one that was very vocal. What do? They let him go in his prime, let him go fight at Eagle FC. You know what I'm saying? Like, once we hear this night, I could keep going on forever and ever on different people, like Mayhem Miller back in the day. I mean, I can honestly, I didn't even want to make a list for that because it's not even one of my biggest points. But, some of the most outspoken guys that we've ever seen, especially like kind of going towards UFC, like Mark Hunt or something, we see them get booted out real quick. And it's one thing that's kind of scary that the UFC's been doing. But also for if you're a promotion, that is kind of cool how you have been keeping the guys quiet. But so Kevin Lee's back in, old-fashioned ways. I expect not to see anything different. But, here's the craziest part. I feel like it's just like the UFC showing how much they care about him because they got this guy fighting on an Apex card. They got him fighting a guy named like Rinat. I'm going to butcher this dude's last name, but Fakhretdinov or something like that, who has a 20-1 record. This guy's not even like, they honestly don't even have Kevin Lee on the main card. They got him on the main, prelim fight, which apparently, gets as many views as the main card, which I highly doubt. But still, like, I mean, this guy's 20-1. But if you are a Kevin Lee fan, some nice things to be excited about. Even though this guy does have a crazy record, I went and looked through all of his opponents, man. Like, this guy up to like 2-3 years ago was fighting in places like Battle on Volga. Have you ever heard of that? Red City fights, Prosperity Fight promotions, like. He's fighting guys. I was looking at these guys' records, man. He was beating guys in his 18th, 17th, 16th pro fight that were 0-1, 0-0, 0-2, 2-2, 2-4. This guy was just beating up on just, some guys that are just probably like, dipping their toe into, fighting. And yeah, he's stacking the nice little record. And, he is coming off one of his best wins against Brian Battle. And I think that guy is 4-1 now in the UFC. So that's his most impressive win, which luckily for our boy Kevin Lee, he's got plenty of those. But now when we look at that aspect, this is where it kind of gets, kind of scary if we're being honest for Kevin Lee. Like, what are we expecting here for his debut, his last little chance in the UFC? I don't know, guys. Back when, it's tough to say this, but it's kind of true. And I don't know if you guys agree. I really feel like the hype that man got I know he beat Michael Chiesa, and we all know that it was a little like awkward because did Michael Chiesa tap? Was it early? It was kind of stupid, but he did get that rear naked choke in really fast and did finish the fight. Like, I don't think Chiesa was getting out of that, but he goes on, gets the interim title fight against Tony Ferguson in a loss. He came out in a loss against Tony Ferguson, but I think it was so impressive at the time because Tony Ferguson was on this crazy win streak, and Kevin Lee did have some moments there where he was fucking up Tony, and I think we just gave him so much hype in a loss that we just like, oh, he's got to be a future champ. And then the guy goes on to lose to Ally Aquina, goes on to lose to, Daniel Rodriguez. It's just some sad stuff because it's like every time that he gets a crazy victory, like, even like he went on to beat Jake Matthews and who else? I think Francisco Trinaldo, I think he submitted in 1 year. And then he goes on and he beats Magomed Mustafayev, who's a dog right now, who hasn't lost in I don't know how many fights. I mean, he said with Michael Chiesa, like all those fights, man, were like 6 years ago, 7 years ago, like 2016, 2017. And then it's like, okay, the Tony Ferguson fight, 2017, that was 6 years ago, guys. And then his last like crazy good finish against, Gregor Gillespie, guys, that was 2019. That was 4 years ago. Like, honestly. And if we're basing it off his last performance at Eagle FC, It took him. He just barely got through a decision. I know he blew out his knee in this fight, but I mean, Diego Sanchez was putting some work on him, and that should have been a fight Kevin Lee should have just easily walked through. No offense to Diego Sanchez, he's just been, he's long in the tooth. He's been out there, It's just every time he gets a chance, like when he loses, he goes out and it's like, okay, we're gonna build you back up. We're gonna have you beat RDA here, like most people are right now. If you're gonna be a true champion, you're gonna beat RDA. Like he's probably the gatekeeper. And he goes out and gets absolutely destroyed by RDA, and he has his chance to get his win back against Ali Aquina, loses again. Like it's like, man, it's just so tough with Kevin Lee. Like he's one of the most frustrating fighters in the world. Like I think he's got all the talent, but it's just, man, he's definitely getting that string of unlucky with injury and stuff. So I mean, honestly, I just don't know what to expect with his UFC career, man. I really don't like his second chance here. I don't think he's gonna get a title chance. I think he moved up to 170, which might be better for his weight cut, but still, man, like the murderer's row out there. And, you could also, play devil's advocate here and be like, his win over or his loss over Tony Ferguson, like even though he did look good, like where's Tony Ferguson now, And if you're actually going to be on team Kevin Lee, you could also say in the other case, he did look kind of good there against Charles Oliveira right before Charles went on his championship run and then, ends up choking and ends up fucking gassing himself out and gets fucking smoked by him. So, I just don't know what to expect. Clearly, the UFC doesn't care much about him. They got him on the Apex card, got him on the prelims. I just don't know what you guys are expecting. Like, it's cool that he fought his way back. It's cool that he got a chance to be back in the UFC. And honestly, I am actually pretty excited that they gave him somebody else, that, at least with like a pretty good record that, maybe looks better for him for a win. Because I think a couple months ago I did a video because they were doing some shit where they were kind of hinting out there and throwing out some rumors that he was going to fight Tony Ferguson again. And I'm like, man, nobody wants to see Tony Ferguson fight right now. Nobody wants to see him get beat. So I don't know, man. I think a lot's riding on the line. And if Kevin Lee just quietly loses this weekend at the Apex, like I don't know what's next for him, man. I think they'd let him get probably another chance. But I just truly don't know. Like, it is kind of refreshing to have him talking his shit again. But at the same time, guys, like, this could be very ugly. He could go out and lose to this dude, even though he should win. Because, like I said, this guy's his record is not as, like, his record's better than what this guy is. That's all I got to say. Like, when you're patting the stats out here like that against guys that are 0-1, 0-0, 0-2, 2-2, like, that shit's not impressive to me. At least Kevin Lee's out there 19-7, just fighting murderers row ever since like 2014, 2015. So that is one thing you got to tip the hat off to him. But I don't know, it just gets scary when you got these fighters coming in and kind of, reimagining themselves, revamping themselves, feeling like always coming in saying, oh, I feel like a brand new fighter. Like that's the stuff that worries me, if I'm being honest with you guys. So not expecting the most out of Kevin Lee, but it would be kind of cool to see him get back in the UFC and get a couple wins. So I don't know how you guys feel about it, but here's your boy, always, Steven Moustaris. Let's go, baby. Have a great weekend, guys.